Hi, everybody. I'm Karin with the Office of Emergency Management in Phoenixville. And I'm going to do a presentation tonight on, we're going to cover a few different things, emergency planning, the basics of emergency management, some programs that we have, and how you get your emergency information and alerts. So first of all, does anybody have any emergency services background here? Besides you? Okay. Okay, does anybody, here's a better question. Does anybody actually know what emergency management is, except you? No? Okay. That's really...
We do like a little bit of training like in the health department, so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Are you with the Medical Reserve Corps?
No.
Okay. All right.
No, but we, had to have some training,
Mm-hmm.
just like for basic.
Okay. Okay, so that's like the number one question that we get asked all the time. Who are you people? What do you do? And what is emergency management? So emergency management is made up of these four things: preparation, response, recovery, and mitigation. And if you all were to get on your phones right now and Google the cycle of emergency management, you would see the diagram is exactly that. A circle, because it never, ever ends, ever. You move from preparation, which is doing things like I'm doing by talking to you guys right now. When you move to the response phase, in the event of an incident somewhere, afterwards there's recovery and then mitigation. And we will go through all of those, and I'll talk a little bit about each of those. So when it comes to preparation, why would it be important to make sure that we're prepared for emergencies?
Because you never know when an emergency is gonna happen.
Right, and that's the biggest thing. You never know when it's gonna happen, and you need to make sure that you are prepared. What are some things that we can do to get prepared?
Stockpile supplies,
Okay, what kind of supplies?
medical, pumps,
Okay.
generators.
Okay,
Water.
water, definitely.
Flashlights,
Yep.
batteries.
Definitely, radio, weather radio. Preparedness is here, we can talk about the issues that we have here. Obviously, I chose this picture because, first of all, today was a disaster. Actually, since April, it's been ridiculous with the weather, the flooding. And I chose this picture particularly because this is the intersection of Church and Bridge. And anybody who's from the Phoenixville area knows that even though this picture was during Hurricane Agnes in 1972, anytime there's, significant rainfall, it pretty much still looks like this. So, 46-year-old photo that's still relevant today. So, the first thing when it comes to preparation is identifying the emergencies that are most likely to happen in our area. Obviously, flooding is a key one for us. Was anybody out and about today? You saw issues with flooding? Obviously, things that we would need to do to prepare for that include making sure that we don't drive through that. How about things that you might keep in your car? Right? You might keep a bag in your car in the event of, if you are stuck in traffic and you can't move. The intersection of 422, 202, and 76 today was completely underwater, and that was traffic jammed up for several hours. So it's important to make sure that we prepare for things like that. Other emergencies that are likely to happen to us are winter emergencies, right? Like snow-related emergencies. So when it comes to the preparation phase of this, and you all know what you have to do to prepare. You live around here, you know what you have to do to prepare for snow, right? The shovels, the snow blowers. But some other things that can happen, as some of you may know, are issues with power outages, especially during the winter, if there's an ice storm. So we need to make sure that we're prepared in our homes in the event of a power outage, just so we are able to exist for, does anybody know how long?
3 days.
3 days, right, 72 hours. You should be able to take care of yourself. Okay, so I just want to flip back to this real quick. Emergency management, just as an overview. Essentially what we do, it's myself, I'm the director of the OEM, and I have a team of about 12 people who are under me. And what we do, basically, is we serve as a hub of communications in the event of an emergency. So, for example, during something like a flood or some other incident that would happen here that requires a large-scale emergency response, our team would be called in and we would open up the Emergency Operations Center, or the EOC, and we serve as a point of communication between all of the first responders. And you guys all know what first responders are, right? The police, the fire, EMS, so we're like second responders. So we set up our EOC and we serve as the communications point between first responders and the County Department of Emergency Services, which they have an EOC in Chester County, and they have representatives from the county, from the state, depending on the size of the emergency, the federal government. They also have representatives in there from all of the utilities, so PECO, Exelon, Verizon, all of the utilities, just in case there was any emergencies related to that. Aqua PA is another big one that they work with. Now, Phoenixville Borough is on its own water system, but when it comes to things like power outages, the concern for Phoenixville Borough, because we are on our own water system, is making sure that the power stays on to all the pumping stations within the borough to make sure that the water does not go out. So anyway, like I said, the Emergency Management serves as a hub of communications, and whether that's us in emergency management, or the County Office of Emergency Management, the Pennsylvania Emergency Management, or FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. We all kind of work together and communication goes up through the chain. It sounds like kind of cool, if you tell somebody, well, sometimes we work with state government, we work with federal government, but the reality of this is, it is not glamorous at all. For smaller incidents, like things like, winter emergencies, this usually ends up being me, hair up in a ponytail, drinking coffee out of a pot, sitting at my kitchen table at 5 o'clock in the morning, communicating with people like Public Works to make sure that they've got all the equipment that they need to do snow removal, or, the police department to make sure that they've got what they need in order to close roads, notifying the county. So really, it's just, it's not boots on the ground, but, we serve in a support role. And that is, for preparation, we do things, as I said before, like this. We come, we talk to you. We participated in National Night Out, where we give out information to the community. We help the Senior Center with the Smart 911 program, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and other things like that. We've done presentations at schools, and also part of our preparedness is our social media, where we make sure that people are familiar with our social media so that in the event of emergency, they know that we're an official source of information and a place to go when they need to know things. So when it comes to recovery, we, at least in my time here, have been fortunate that we haven't had any major disasters. I mean, the last huge one in Phoenixville, natural disaster, was Hurricane Agnes in 1972. And at that point, emergency management really wasn't even a thing. Right now, when it comes to recovery, a large portion of what we do, because winter emergencies are one of our, the things that we have a problem with, we work to essentially recover reimbursement funds in the event that there is a large issue. And January of, I believe it was 2016, when we had all that snow, the borough had a problem with snow removal, A, because there was so much of it, and B, because there was no place to put it. So they didn't have enough equipment, because, really, nobody's prepared for 4 feet of snow, honestly. Nobody here, anyway. Maybe in Maine, but not here. So part of what we did is to work with the county and bring in plowing equipment from Scranton to help the borough with snow removal. And from here, they went over to Schuylkill Township to assist Schuylkill Township with their snow removal as well. So when it came to the recovery phase of that operation, part of what we did is, and we will talk about this a little bit later on as well, we had declared a state of emergency, and because of the scale of what was going on, we then did a disaster declaration. So disaster declaration allowed us during the recovery phase to submit for reimbursement to the federal government to get money back, 75% of the money back that we had spent to bring in equipment from other locations, and that was about $72,000. So it was a pretty decent sized operation for just a snowfall. So mitigation is really just, you find a problem, and you figure out how you're gonna fix it. Okay, so we've identified the emergencies. One thing that you definitely wanna do within your own homes is to create a personal emergency plan, whether it's for yourself, for your families, in your own home, or, you know, relatives who may need some assistance. So let's talk a little bit about what we should put into an emergency plan. So obviously, you want all of your vital information, right? Your name, the names and birth dates and information of all the people who were in your home. What else would we put in a family emergency plan?
Medical.
Okay.
Medications, yeah.
Medications, right, medical conditions?
Evacuation plans?
Yes, yes. And very, very important is a reunification plan. In the event that it is an emergency such as a fire or something like that, your family becomes separated, what are you gonna do? Especially if you have children, what are you gonna do to make sure that you can find your children and where do they go? There are templates for all of this anywhere online. I would recommend ready.gov. They have a ton of information on there. They've got these family planning templates, and they have a lot of information. And you can see up here, 2 separate meeting places, just in case, for example, like today, there's flooding, there's an issue. Say you chose Borough Hall as your meeting place, and Borough Hall's flooded. You need a secondary meeting place, so you would say, choose the library. You would make sure that everybody within your family knew all of this information, where you're gonna go, how to get in touch if, you know, for example, cell phone service goes down or something like that. Choose maybe like an out-of-town relative as well, someone who's not gonna be affected by whatever's going on right in your location. So again, then you wanna hang on to all of this information. There are a lot of people who do things like they have a fire safe box in their house where they'll keep things like birth certificates and, you know, social security cards, things like that. Put an emergency plan in there as well, just in case. What are some other things that we might wanna include in an emergency plan?
Bank account,
Okay. Okay.
financial information.
Mhm. Okay, so, and again, like I said, you can find templates for all of this on the ready.gov website. So let's talk about building a go bag, things that you're gonna need to leave your home in the event of an emergency. This checklist, this is pretty, an in-depth checklist. Heavy duty trash bags, clothes and undergarments, spare socks. Why is that important? Anybody who served in the military or did some, yep, or did, you know, who has worked emergency services knows, like, if your feet get wet or not good. So extra socks.
Is water on there?
I'm sorry?
Is water on there?
Water is on there, yeah. Bottles of water. And does anyone know what they recommend for everybody, like, to bring? How much water per day per person?
Oh, yeah.
A gallon per
Person per day.
person per day, yep. Okay, so food, what kind of food? Non-perishable, right?
Non-perishable.
Things like protein bars, granola bars are all very helpful. Depending on, you know, what kind of emergency it is. If it's, honestly, like, you're gonna know. If your house is completely flooded out and you need to leave, you're gonna know that you're gonna have to be out of there long-term, right? So you can grab some things, canned foods, things like that. I would recommend, I got this bag, so I worked EMS in Philadelphia, and we had to work the DNC, Democratic National Convention, if I could speak, that'd be great. And part of what we had to do was prepare for 4 days of being locked in there, and we couldn't do anything and go anywhere. So I got this bag. I would recommend a bag similar to this, because this is fantastic. I got it at the officer store in Coatesville. They're very, you know, relatively inexpensive. It's about $70. So in here, I fit 4 days worth of clothing, food and water, a medical kit, and a Kevlar vest. So it fits a lot, and very sturdy and waterproof as well, which is important depending on, you know, what kind of emergency it is. So, any questions from anybody on things you should put in a go bag or a family emergency planning? Okay, so if you take the cans, don't forget the can opener. They're important to remember things like this, like, you know, you think about the big things that you need. The canned food, please remember the can opener, otherwise it's kind of pointless. Here's the website for everybody, if you wanna just write that down or check it out on your phone at some point. There is so much emergency planning information on there that it will make your head spin. And honestly, there are plans for what to do with your pets, how to prepare for, you know, if you've got pets, and that's, you know, a big thing, especially people who have multiple pets. You know, don't forget too, your pet food, you know, water for them, your pet's on any medication in addition to your own medication, things like that. It also has information on what to do if you or someone you know, whether it's a neighbor or, you know, a family member, has special needs and things that you would need to do to help prepare them as well. There's a very large section on that. Okay, 72 hours, how long we need to be prepared to basically manage ourselves. This can become problematic in terms of, excuse me, a power outage, especially if you do have someone you know who, you know, has special needs. If they're on medical equipment that requires electricity, that's a problem. If they have, you know, medication that needs to be refrigerated, all of these things you have to remember and take into account. These things you can talk to your medical provider or that person's medical provider to get some information on you know, what to do. You have someone who is on oxygen, they can talk to you about, you know, making sure that you got some backup. So in the event of something like a power outage, if it lasts longer than 72 hours, that's when, or if it's, you know, determined that they think it may last for a considerable amount of time, that's when they start opening up the emergency shelters. Here in Phoenixville, we do warming centers, and that's only because we don't have, you know, a large staff like they do in Chester County, where they can open up, you know, significantly large. It's the mega shelter at Westchester University. So here we do warming centers. It's a place to have power, charge your phone, you know, get out of the cold, whatever it may be, whatever you may need. But the shelters, those are strictly governed by like Red Cross guidelines. They've got places to sleep, they have places to shower, they have places where, you know, you can get food and you can stay there for the duration of, you know, the time that you need. Okay.
What do you bring with you if you are going to be in a Red Cross?
If you're in a shelter?
You have
So
to bring yourself.
definitely bring yourself.
No, for
you know,
yourself.
Definitely bring yourself. You know, honestly, the same thing that you would bring in your go bag. If you have a bag, you know, your kid, just take that with you. Make sure that you've got your own medications, change of clothes, food. They usually provide food there, and I know the Red Cross is very good about that, providing food to people who are in shelters, but, you know, it can't hurt to have your own. You know, so really anything that you would take when you leave your home, including cash, but make sure it's secure within your bag. Because, you know, really you're gonna be in a gym with who knows how many other people sleeping on a cot, honestly. And they're not the most comfortable accommodations, but, you know, if you are experiencing an emergency and have no place else to go, that's the place to be. Okay. All right.
Like for kids and stuff, it would be important to bring something to help, I mean, like games or cards. or-
Coloring books?
I mean, right,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know if that's provided for, or,
Usually it is. I mean, even in Phoenixville, we have that stuff. Barnstone Art for Kids is wonderful, and they donated coloring books to us and crayons so that we've got things like that to provide for children. Chester County Department of Emergency Services gave us some toys and some dolls for children if we ever have them in the warming centers here. But yeah, I mean, definitely bring your own stuff. That, you know, whatever you would need to exist. Don't forget a cell phone charger. Honestly, whatever you would need to exist that you can bring with you, bring with you.
And they don't have food for food allergies, right? So if you have a kid with food allergies, you have to.
That's important.
bring it.
They do take that into account because there are so many people who have food allergies. But again, it's, you know, they're limited because they're trying to do the greatest good for the greatest number. So yes, if your child or yourself has food allergies, definitely make sure that you've got whatever you need to feed your child. And also, don't forget that EpiPen.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something like a severe peanut allergy. I think that they have kind of gotten away from doing that, like serving, peanut butter and jelly, if possible, in these shelters, just because of the number of people who do have allergies. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, so we talked a little bit about this earlier, state of emergency versus a disaster declaration. So you may have heard, even this past winter, Phoenixville Borough has declared a state of emergency. This sounds like a really huge deal. Like, it sounds like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. It really is not. Honestly, all this is financial, and it allows emergency things to start taking place, like removal of cars from snow emergency routes, which is the biggest thing here. We need to make sure that cars are gone from snow emergency routes so that we can make sure that any emergency vehicles can get through with no problem. And you guys all know, if you have on-street parking, right, you shovel out your parking spot and, your neighbor might come and either take your spot or shovel it in. The snow that's on the side of the road makes it difficult. Sometimes you have to park like 20 feet from the curb. Really, the snow emergency route is just to make sure that we can get those emergency vehicles through in the event that there is a problem. From a financial standpoint, what that also does is the Borough of Phoenixville has to do it's the RFP process, right, where they send things out for bid to contract in order to get contractors, So for example, the January of 2016, when we had to bring in these snowplows from Scranton, really the borough would have had to put out a bid, and that's a very long process, and in a situation that's an emergency, you don't have time for that. So what the state of emergency allows borough officials to do is kind of bypass that to make sure that they're doing what's in the best interest of all the residents. So a disaster declaration, if a situation is getting to the point, because also within the EOC we keep track of all the financials, because expenses can get to be significantly high depending on what's going on. So for disaster declaration, that, as I talked about before, allows us to later apply for reimbursement to the federal government in the event that we surpass a certain threshold of money that we've spent. It varies. That threshold varies from event to event, depends on what it is. And the way this works is everybody has to declare. The borough has to declare the disaster. The county has to declare the disaster. The state has to declare the disaster, and the feds have to do the same. So it just kind of has to work its way up the chain in order for all of this process to get started. The disaster is declared by the President of the United States. So essentially what they do is they look, they get the information that's being provided to them from their representatives at FEMA and decide whether or not this truly is a disaster. I can tell you that in dealing with things like this under the Obama administration, he was great. The reimbursement, we never had problems getting reimbursed for anything. He was wonderful about making sure that residents were cared for. Under the current administration, there was a situation in Western Pennsylvania where I believe it was just this past winter. It was a lot of snow, a lot of ice, a lot of problems, and they spent a significant amount of money making sure that everything was taken care of, that residents were safe, they could reopen roads, and President Trump would not sign the disaster declaration, so they didn't get reimbursed for any of that, and that was a significant amount. So, we have our process, we still continue to follow our process, but honestly, and I'm not being political, by the way, I'm just telling you it varies from administration to administration on how this works. Our processes stay the same, but when it works its way up through the federal government, things can change. Okay, before I talk to you about Cert, I want to talk to you about Smart 911. Does anybody familiar with the Smart 911 program? Okay, so Smart 911 is a program that is implemented, it was implemented by Chester County, Montgomery County, Delaware County, and I believe other counties in our region. And essentially what it is you log in to smart911.com, you create a profile, and you can upload all of your information. And by information, I mean everything about yourself. If you've got any medical conditions, if you're on any medication, you can upload a floor plan of your house. You can put information in there about, different things in your house. Like say you live on the third floor, in the third floor apartment, and, the stairs are super, super narrow. That's something you would want first responders to know. So you can put all of that information into Smart 911. Then when you call 911, first responders have access to all of that information. So why would that be important? Why would it be important to let somebody know that you've got a narrow set of stairs and you're 3 floors up?
Faster response, being prepared.
Yeah, right.
Helps them prepare better too.
Yep. Right, because you may not be able to take a stretcher up there. You're gonna have to plan for some other equipment. And if you have a life-threatening emergency, time is of the essence. So, it's an excellent program. And anybody can do it. You can do it for yourselves. You can make a profile, again, for, if you've got elderly residents or, neighbors, family members, you certainly can help with that too. Because the more information first responders have to be able to help you, the better off everybody's gonna be.
How secure is that information?
The information is secure. I know that privacy is a concern. The information is very secure, and the only people who have access to that are the first responders. And it comes up on the MDC, the mobile screen, so it's not like they can go home and punch in a code and access your information. It comes up when you place the 911 call. So even if you're calling 911 from your cell phone in Delaware County, they're still gonna have access to your information, so you know.
Is that a national program?
I know that they're trying to build this. At this time, it's not a national program. They're trying to build this, and I know Southeastern Pennsylvania is working very hard to make sure that at least, in our region, everybody's using this, but at this time, it's not, unfortunately, it's not, because it's an excellent program.
Just a quick question, I know years, I don't know if it's still current, but there's some areas that, that don't, Charlestown, I don't know, they do not have local police, they don't have
Right.
the local police, so one time when I called to try to, somebody had taken a cement park bench from the Christian college and put it out in the middle of the street, and I was working and came home.
Why?
Came up over a hill and almost, so I called, the police, and they're like, oh, you have to call 911. And I'm like, it's not an emergency, but it could be an emergency.
Right.
And they're like, well, no, the state police come in, so, but are there other, is that still the process where you have to call because I'm thinking that takes up 911, phone space.
Right. Something like that, though, I guess you could argue that could become an emergency situation.
I'm using it as an example.
Yeah, I understand.
If somebody has a lost dog and they live in Charlestown and they say, well, call 911, that's not really, it might be an emergency for the family.
So you need to check out who, depending on where you live, who your municipal police service is provided by. In Charlestown, it is the Pennsylvania State Police, because they don't have their own police department, and they also don't have their own fire department. They're covered partially by East Whiteland Fire Company, and then partially by Kimberton. And then I believe West End serves part of Charlestown Township that handles, that Kimberton covers, and then East Whiteland's ambulance. So, really, it depends on what your municipality is.
There's a Montgomery County non-emergency number.
There is. There's also a Chester County non-emergency number. But for something like that, because it is covered by the state police,
I'm just thinking it would tie
Yeah.
up the line, like an emergency line, if somebody's trying to call because of an accident or they need a doctor, that is.
right. Charlestown, yeah, I'm not sure what their non-emergency line is. I imagine they have one for the state police.
I'm just using, I don't know if that's the only place.
There are other
that has-
municipalities in Chester County that don't have police services. And I know some of them don't have police services after 11 p.m.
Right.
They rely on the state police. If you're ever in doubt, call 911. Honestly, if you're ever in doubt about that, call 911. Obviously, a lost dog, you wouldn't call
Well,
911
if there's
for,
a
but-
tree down in a storm, you would wanna do that
Yes.
because you wouldn't want someone to have
Yes.
an accident, but.
Right. So if you're ever in doubt, call 911, or drive over the border into Schuylkill Township and call the non-emergency number. Which, by the way, is 610-935-2440. Okay, I have information up here on Smart 911, including the website, some information about the Smart 911 program. You guys are welcome to come up and take this. Did you guys also know that you can text 911 if you can't call? Okay. There's a card up here for that as well. You have to be very specific when you text them. You've got to tell them, you know, what your specific location and what the problem is. But I believe in the 911 center, when someone texts 911, all the terminals start flashing. So it's, you know, a little bit different than receiving a physical 911 call. But there's information up here on that. Okay, so how does everybody get their emergency alerts? How do you find out about an emergency?
Cell phone.
Email comes through.
Okay.
Or
All right.
the news, or sometimes on the radio or the TV, it interrupts like the broadcast.
Yes. Okay. So, they send out the alerts, and in case anybody was awake at 6:45 this morning when everybody's phone started blowing up about the flash flood alert, very loud, very annoying, and you can't miss it. So they sent those out for missing children, weather emergencies. So anytime there is an emergency, they will alert you in whatever location you're in. There also is a program called Ready Chesco. That's Chester County's version of the alert system. There's information up here on how you can sign up for that. They too will blow up your phone with texts and emails and, you know, the occasional phone call if it's necessary. It's a great thing to sign up for because it provides you like immediate emergency information. I can tell you also
Montgomery has it too.
yes,
If any of us
okay,
are over there.
Ready Mako? All right, that was easy. Okay, so I can also tell you that the Borough of Phoenixville is working on a new website, and as part of that website, there is going to be a built-in emergency alert system. So that is something anybody who lives in Phoenixville or works in Phoenixville is able to sign up for as well. And when that information goes live, we will post that to all of our social media and to the borough website, and I'm sure there's going to be a huge information push on that.
Now that I know that there's more than one Monco here, you know how we're just across the river?
Mm-hmm.
What, you know, if there's an emergency, you have to get to a warning center, we just might come over, you know?
That's quite all right.
Okay.
Are you from Montgomery County?
I'm just over, you know, Montclair, just over
Okay,
the river.
okay.
I mean, we might need you.
We
Well-
have a Phoenixville address, so.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
It's quite all right. I can tell you that we have picked off some people from Montclair to be part of our EOC team, so, you know. Right back there, by the way, her. We frequently work with Upper Providence Township. The emergency management director in your neck of the woods, on your side of the river, I've known him for 20 years, so we have a great working relationship. Our police departments work well together, fire departments, you know, everybody works really well together. And we've we've really talked about the fact, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about that with this program. Whatever emergency we have in Phoenixville, specifically flooding, you guys are gonna have in Montclair, and you're probably gonna have it worse than we are. I mean, I don't know if you live in like the lower Providence end of Montclair, where,
No, I'm not up the hills.
okay, or Port Providence, I'm sorry. Okay, where it floods all the time, Walnut Street. Yeah, we have talked, and we actually do a lot of information sharing, including information on equipment and resources that each municipality has. Like, we have a list of all of Upper Providence's public works equipment. They've got a list of ours, so that way if ever something happens, the first thing they can do is call us. If we've got equipment that they can use, and vice versa. We've done that before, reached out to Montgomery County. We also, I can tell you, I also have an excellent working relationship with Montgomery County Department of Public Safety, and they're basically the Chester County Department of Emergency Services, but in Monco. I've reached out to them for resources before as well. They're fantastic to work with. So, I mean, we all have a really good working relationship. And it is kind of tough sometimes because we're right at the border. You know, Chester County has a lot of issues down in the southern end of the county. And up here, it's actually easier for us to go through Montgomery County for resources and things that we need, just because of the proximity. But yeah, if ever there was a situation where, you needed a place to go, a shelter, a warming center, and that wasn't available for whatever reason in Upper Providence, or you couldn't get to it, you certainly could come over to Phoenixville. I mean, we're not like checking IDs, turning anybody away, I promise. So, definitely feel that you can come over to Phoenixville if you ever need assistance. Okay.
Does this, same thing apply, like if the towers ever go and we get like an alert, is that covered under this as well? Will you get into that, or?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, we can talk about that right now if you would
Okay.
like. Another part of what we do, and probably the biggest drill that we do, is with Exelon for Limerick. Every 2 years, we conduct a full-scale exercise with Limerick, and it's us and all of the other municipalities that are within a 10-mile radius of the Limerick Power Plant. And that's a lot of municipalities in multiple counties. So it's a huge coordinated exercise. What we do is we open up the EOC and, we receive the information from Exelon in real time as it's happening. And when we drill with them, it really is full scale. I mean, we are completely setting up whatever's going on up at Limerick. In the past, they used to do the typical meltdown drill. There's a problem in a reactor. This past drill that they call it a hostile action. And essentially what happened was they had someone land a plane inside the grounds of Limerick. And while all of the police resources were concentrated on the plane, they had another person gain access to the plant. So that was what they drilled for, because the reality of that happening is slim to none, but they want to drill for it just in case, obviously. So with it being a hostile action, everything is very quick moving, but that's something that we do inside our EOC. And we are evaluated by federal and state representatives on our response to that. So as part of that, if something were to happen at Limerick, we get the information from the county, who gets it from Exelon and PEMA, so on up the chain. We open the EOC, and then the information on that comes from Exelon and the county and the state. And then we push out what they tell us, because something like that is much larger than, one municipality. But yes, so if there is a situation, you would get emergency alerts.
Right, but I mean, it changes from, I don't know if it's year to year, like where you would have to go for emergency evacuation. So is that included in the website as to where?
Sure.
You don't wanna wait until you're in the middle of an
No, of
emergency
course
to
not.
look up where
Yep.
your family has to go.
All of that information actually is on the borough website, phoenixville.org, and you can look under emergency and safety, and that's our section of the website. We have a link to, everybody gets in the mail, everybody gets that form from Exelon, right? If you open it up and look in there, it tells you all the information about evacuation routes and details, information like that. But there's a link to that.
But it does change from it's not the same every time.
There are multiple locations, and they lay that out in the brochure that you get. Essentially what they want to do is get everybody outside of that 10-mile radius.
Right.
So the quickest route for you to get out, and yes, they tell you, these are the locations you can go. That doesn't mean that you have to. If you get somewhere else, if you have a family member or a friend, or park somewhere, you want to park your car in a parking lot outside that 10 miles in, you're certainly free to do that. They're not mandating you to go to those places. They're just telling you that if you need a place to go, that's and that's especially important especially if something happens while kids are in school. Because the schools, they evacuate and they transport the children to those locations, and if any you have school-age children or grandchildren, you get all that information at the beginning of the year where the kids are evacuated to. So all of that's included in that brochure. But there, as I said, is a link to that on our website, or you probably could just Google it too. Exelon Emergency Plan.
But would they tell you though, if you really should stay in your house,
Yep.
tape up the doors and all instead of going
Yep,
outside?
so that's called sheltering in place.
Yeah, would they
and-
tell you that on the emergency thing?
They will tell you that when
Just
when
tell
the
me
information, oh no, sure, of course. When all of that information gets pushed out, there are several levels of the incident, right? There's, the alert, and then there's the general incident, and then there's the time where you are supposed to take action. Whatever action has to be taken, all of that information will be pushed out to
Okay.
you. Whether that's sheltering in place, which is a good point, because, you could say to people, shelter in place, and they may not know what that means. So learn all of that in advance.
Take the pills.
Yeah, the governor has to issue the order for you to take the KI.
Oh, okay.
Does everybody have KI, by the way?
What's the shelf life on that though, because.
It says on the, it'll tell.
There is an expiration date on it.
So look at it.
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
what you got.
There's an expiration date on it. That's really all I can say.
Where do you get it?
You can get it through Chester County Health Department, and I can give you that contact information after this if you would
Okay.
like. And they can mail it right to your house.
Does that degrade any faster than regular meds?
I'm sorry, I didn't
Does
hear
that
you.
degrade any faster than regular meds? Do you happen to know?
No.
Okay.
No, as far as I know, it doesn't. And as I said, there is an expiration date, but I mean, it's still-
Regular meds, they put like a year expiration date, but the military had a study done, and most of them, depending on the condition that they're kept in, are good for up to 15 years later.
Right. And KI, I mean,
Which might not be as good.
So KI protects your thyroid,
Thyroid.
saturates your thyroid with iodine, and that way, helps prevent thyroid cancer. But I feel like if liver melts down, we're gonna have bigger problems than thyroid cancer.
My guess would be all good.
Yeah. Any more questions about Limerick? Anything else I can answer about that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, one
No,
more
no.
question, I do worry about this. So, this thing where, what if they get to the power grid?
Mhm.
So, I'm sure that they have a backup generator of some sort, but
Oh, yeah.
just like, if that runs out, is there like, I read that the plant would cool down anyway if we ran out, if we couldn't get the electricity back on,
Well, there are backups to the
For an
backups,
EMP.
to the backups, to the backups, to the backups. I mean,
Okay.
they're very prepared.
Okay.
Exelon is very, very prepared for something like that. And when I explained the hostile action to you, that was just a scenario they gave us. The likelihood of something like that being able to happen, I don't know if you've ever been in the vicinity of Limerick, but they have heavily armed,
Yeah.
guards, there. And they are definitely very well prepared.
Okay, good,
Okay.
good to know, thanks.
They still do the alarm like at 2 p.m. on the first Monday, okay, so.
Yes.
There was one time where it went off and it wasn't that time, and I forget what happened, but like, will you get an alert on your phone as well? Like if something like that?
If there's a malfunction, I don't think they send out alerts for malfunctions, because they don't know that it's gonna malfunction until it happens.
Well,
So,
it was within the last year, I think it was like a train whistle, and nobody knew what it was, but it was like really,
Oh,
really,
yeah.
really loud, it was the middle,
yeah, so that had nothing to do with Limerick, that was,
No,
a
but-
train coming through here. There was something was
the
wrong
whistle
where.
jammed or something?
Yes, and they couldn't shut it off, and they weren't sure what to do, and the people on the other end they were talking to in dispatch said, you gotta just keep moving. And it was ridiculous, I remember that, because our phone blew up like 5,000. People were like, oh my god.
Like our neighbors were calling, like, is that,
Yeah.
we don't have to evacuate, I'm like,
No, no, no,
I think
no.
it's a train
Listen, if
whistle.
If you have to evacuate, you're gonna know it,
Okay.
because, we will tell you,
I'm
certainly.
using that as an example.
Nope, I
so-
get it completely, I get it. Yeah, that was like a weird thing that happened, that was a weird thing. But when it comes to the Limerick sirens, the only thing that they're used for is Limerick. We don't use them for, any weather alerts, nothing like that. They are used specifically for Limerick. They test them every month, first Monday of the month at 2:00 p.m. And 2 months of the year, June and December, they do the full siren test. So like back in the day, they used to test the full siren every month. And anybody who was around here at that time, you knew first Monday of the month at 2:00, it was loud and obnoxious. Now they do a growl test. So January through May, and then July through November. a growl test. It's one very low sound and it lasts 2 or 3 seconds, and that's it, just to make sure it's working. But they still like to test the full siren. They do that in June, as I said, in December as well. And we put out notifications, and everybody puts out notifications just to make sure everyone knows it's only a test. So you can look for those on news outlets, social media, the county puts out information too, as well, just to make sure that everyone knows.
Karen, what I'm asking though, I mean, like, if it ever were to run at a different time, would we would also get an alert
You would get an
on our
alert,
phone?
yes.
Okay.
You would get an alert,
You always verify on TV and radio too, I'm sure.
yes. Yeah,
Right,
because
but
if something
there were
happens where they
power
need to do that,
outages-
if something happens where they need to do that, you are gonna get that information everywhere. Like, that's not something that we're gonna push out on Facebook and hope everybody sees it. You're gonna get that information everywhere, on every social media, news outlets, it's gonna come across your phone. You definitely will know. Okay? All right. Any other questions on that?
With the wildfires in California, I mean, we have had droughts in this area.
Yeah.
We could have a wildfire
Mhm.
10 miles up the road, so I was thinking, if I had to bug out and there's a chance that there wouldn't be a house there when I came back, what do I take with me?
Okay, so definitely make sure that
This
you.
isn't a 3-day
Yeah.
thing, this is.
No, I understand completely, and that's a very good question. So you wanna make sure that you've got all of your important documents. You want, things like birth certificates, social security cards, money, any financial records, anything that is a vital record to you. First of all, I would recommend putting in a fireproof box just for, the everyday problem, or situation where you may have a fire in your home. But all of those vital records, make sure that you are taking those with you. And then, everything that goes into your go kit, everything that you would need, the water, the food, the clothing, obviously medication, your pets, your children, your grandchildren, all of those important things. But, you have to, if it's something where they're coming around and notifying you, you have to evacuate in, by tomorrow at 6 p.m., you're gonna know and you're gonna have time to prepare and to pack your car. If a situation were to ever happen where, say there's a wildfire and it's very close to your house, and fire department comes and bangs on your door and says, get out now, you need to know where those things are. Keep them in a place where you know where they are, they're easily accessible, that way you can grab them and go. Because, here's the thing, even if you don't manage to get those vital records, or even your medication or clothing, all of that stuff can be replaced. It can all be replaced. There are pharmacies, I know CVS does this, if you are in an emergency situation and you weren't able to grab your medication, your doctor can call in the prescription to CVS, and I'm sure every pharmacy does this as well, I just happen to know for sure that CVS does. And no matter where you are, you can get that medication. So the most important thing is to make sure that you and your family and your pets are safe. Everything else is replaceable. But if you have the time, make sure that you grab those essential documents. And like I said, it would be very helpful to keep them in a single place. I, again, would recommend a fireproof box, just in case. But those are the things that you want to take with you.
Would it also be a good idea in your go bag to have copies, or you always have the original?
I mean, you could put copies in there, but I don't know, honestly, I don't know what a copy of a birth certificate, or like a copy of a social security card. Most people carry social security cards in their wallet anyway, but like, I don't know how effective a copy is gonna be. I mean, it can't hurt.
When you can bring the original, but I was
Yep.
just wondering.
Yeah, I mean, it can't hurt,
Right.
but if the original is in a place where it's accessible, that you can just grab it and go. Okay, any other questions about that? Or anything that we talked about before we move quickly into the Cert program? Okay, so I'm just gonna give you a brief overview of the Cert program. This is the Community Emergency Response Team. And what this is, I believe it's 8 weeks, an 8-week course in disaster response and preparedness. And this not only prepares you personally for, situations that may arise in your own home, but it also allows you to help us if there's a problem. If we find ourselves in a regional disaster, whether, let's just say it's weather related, hurricane comes, resources are gonna be committed all over the place, to every corner of this region. We are gonna need as much assistance as we can get. So with the Cert program, we bring people in and we train them over these 2 months in disaster medical operations and response, fire, teach you how to shut off utilities. We teach you how to do search and rescue. We teach you how to do things like, with the disaster medical end of that, it's treatment, it's triage as well. So you learn the basics and then you learn, overall,
First aid.
treating people for, long periods of time. So it's excellent, and I would recommend it for anybody, even just to get yourself prepared for what's happening, what's going on in case there's a problem. Chester County is offering a course through the Department of Emergency Services. They're offering it in, I believe, it begins in December. We are gonna try to run one concurrently here in Phoenixville. So that information will be pushed out through the borough website and through our social media page if we decide to do that. Along with that, we do a course in disaster psychology, which is, the overall effects of responding to a disaster, that has on, people's mental health. Both responders and individuals who, you may encounter. So it's, like I said, it's an awesome program, and it's free, which is most important. And when you complete the course, you get a cool backpack, and you get some cool tools. And this is a full, anything that you would need in an emergency preparedness go kit, we have. And then some. There are medical supplies in here, first aid, we have a flashlight, we have,
I'm surprised it's battery operated, not wind up.
yeah, they are battery operated. Plus, the most important thing is again, you can be part of our team. And you get to wear this super cool Cert vest.
Oh, man.
So if anybody has any interest in that, let me know. I can give you the Chester County website, and you guys can register for that, or you can take a look and see when we're doing that course in Phoenixville. It's we try to schedule it like one class per week, and it's usually nights. We also do Saturdays as well. And then at the end, we do a full-scale disaster simulation at the Tactical Village in Chester County, in Coatesville. There's a burn building, so we really just suit you up and send you into a building. We make you do the search and rescue. We make you do the triage and treatment of patients. And there are live actors too, which is great. The last time we did a class, we actually did that at Borough Hall, so we're able to do it here, but it's so much cooler at the Tactical Village because it's like a 5-story building, and it's dark and there's awesome sound effects, so it's more real life than flipping over a table and having somebody screaming in Borough Hall.
Sounds like
Basically a council meeting. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Is there, like, for the, emergency, like the shelters and stuff, is there a place where you can sign up to volunteer to help? Like, if you're not part of the, let's say you don't have to evacuate, but you maybe live within a distance where you could help
Yeah.
cook or,
You know who can help with that? The health
Yeah.
department.
okay.
Because they house the Medical Reserve Corps, and
Okay.
they're the ones who generally do the volunteering. So
Okay.
Chester County Medical Reserve Corps.
But they still would have to go through training
They
for
do- they
that.
provide all the training,
You can't just
yep.
have somebody that comes in off the street and just don't have to go through the training.
No. We had that in Phoenixville.
Okay.
It was great because, everybody has the best intentions, but it didn't work. It didn't work. So, yeah, the Red Cross provides training for that as well.
Right.
Definitely go through the Medical Reserve Corps.
I haven't noticed it in Chester County, but Montgomery County, we have color detours. So they're already pre-planned detours, you'll see signs underneath like
Yes.
speed limit signs and stuff, and you'll see like, yellow detour this way.
Mhm.
They can shut off sections of highway, like if 422 had an issue, there is a detour between Oaks and
Right.
Collegeville, and you just follow those signs. But that, I didn't know what it was, and I saw them for a couple of years. I finally asked the police officers,
Yeah.
if that might come in handy for someone sometime.
Listen, I think we're all in the same boat, we're like, what is that? Because, we didn't know either, honestly. But, yeah, I, actually, come to think of it, I don't think I've noticed any in Chester County either.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask about that.
Apparently, there's only certain regions, there's like some state down south started it, and then
Okay.
like somewhere in southeastern PA, at least Montgomery County.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But,
That's, yeah, actually, I
Yeah.
have not
Yeah.
noticed that. I'm gonna actually call DES tomorrow and ask them about that. Okay. Okay. Everybody good? All right, so up here, I have things that you can take home, and please take them so I don't have to take them home. I have backpacks, I have water bottles, and all the information, including, there are some emergency planning cards here. So you can feel free to take multiple of these. It, has a place where you can put all your medicines and medical history, emergency contacts, all of that. So that's things that you can, basically pocket-sized things that, you can hang on to for your family, or relatives or whoever, okay? So come help yourselves. And don't forget to take information on Smart 911.